Hello YouTube, how's it going? Thank you for joining me in another video on the channel. I'm 835 subs strong. Thank you all so much. I'm almost there to 100, not 100, but 1,000. 100k is the next milestone, but thank you all so much. I do appreciate all the recommendations about putting an intro up. I'm trying to work on an original one for After Effects and everything. I do read all the comments, even if I don't heart all of them. I think the harden should be very exclusive to specific comments that I think go above and beyond. I hope all of you understand. But either way, also my main channel hit 82,000 subs, so everyone who's subbing through that, thank you so much as well. I really, really do appreciate it. But Saints Row. Now, Saints Row was one of the most, let's face it, it was one of the worst games to come out in the franchise. Now, I never played Saints Row, but I had friends back in high school, and I've seen the Rooster Teeth, the Let's Play with Jeff and Michael. I've seen lots of videos. I kind of understand the themes of Saints Row. Saints Row is basically GTA if they dialed up the insanity to 1,000. Basically, it's just a game. It's GTA with a lot of cheat codes. That's what it is. It's just supposed to be mindless fun with no holds bar, with absolutely insane things happening. I don't know which Saints Row this is. I think it's Saints Row the Third, where you start off as the president of the United States and you have to cure cancer or end world hunger. Then you fight aliens outside. That's kind of like the setting. And when the new game came out, a lot of people were excited for it, but of course, it turned out to just be, I have no other way to put this, but it's basically every woke thing you can think of compiled into a game trying to use the Saints Row motif as like a skinwalker. Like basically the idea of student loans, avocados on toast, and basically every stereotype you can think of dialed up and expecting people to laugh at it when in reality it was just cringe. I just don't think the developers understood the difference between just being mindless fun where they know that this is ironic and not meant to be taken seriously, and using modern themes as a way to just be very cringe about what they're trying to state. Either way, we're going to get to the Bounded into Comics article because they did a good job of summarizing this. Ryan Pearson. I should read the author more often, but basically the number one thing that we are going to discuss is this. Uh, plus we have fixed a huge number of bugs, including achievement trophy issues, stability, and challenges. So get comfortable. There's a lot to digest here. Too long, don't read. We improved on a lot of stuff. Some of it you need to play to really appreciate, especially combat changes. So get back to Santos Elos now and let us know what you think. Now, that is, look, it's like the situation with Redfall. It doesn't matter how stable you make the game. When the game launches, that is going to be the first thing people gravitate towards, no matter what, no matter how good it gets later down. There are some exceptions to that rule. No Man's Sky, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Final Fantasy 14 are the top three games that people always mention. But when it comes to games like Cyberpunk 2077, Fallout 76, people will always remember how it launched. They'll always remember Jedi Survivor may be a good game, but it launched in a crappy state, and a lot of people just uninstalled it, got a refund if they could, especially on Xbox and Steam, where as long as you play less than 2 hours of the game, you can refund the game. There are special circumstances. I was able to refund Manhunt, for example. Not Manhunt. I forgot what game I was able to refund. Oh yeah, Aliens versus Predator, because I got the game more than 2 weeks ago because there is a 2 week time delay and it wouldn't launch on my Xbox Series. So I told them and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're right. So we're going to refund you the game." There are special circumstances. One of the biggest examples for Steam is the BioShock Infinite incident where someone couldn't get past the baptism puzzle because they were such a devoted Christian and they just couldn't play the game past that point, which is, again, that's a fair assessment. If you can't do that because it goes against your moral ideals, I have nothing against that. But yeah, it doesn't matter how the game is. And it also comes down, I go on a bit of a rant here, but it's to build context for the article itself. It doesn't matter how much you fix a game. It's still going to be a crap game if it doesn't have the good foundation. It's like, for example, Jedi Survivor. Jedi Survivor has a lot of bugs and issues, but once they fix all the problems, it is a good game. Underneath everything that the performance issues suffer from, it's a good game. It has a good story, great combat. A lot of people enjoyed the idea of Cal's story. A lot of people prefer him over Rey, which is saying something. I do too. I think Cal is superior to Rey in every way. It's a good game. And the problem is that Saints Row is not. It's like with Redfall. You can fix the game as much as you want. It can be run into near perfection. It's still a bad game, no matter what. Yeah, the story is kind of okay, but the game is still crap. Why would you play it when you have games like Borderlands, any of the Borderlands game? You have Destiny. Destiny is free to play. You can play that. And that's the same thing with Saints Row. Why would you play this when GTA 5 is available with hundreds of hours of content, not to mention the single player? So let's keep going. In line with the previous announced post-launch roadmap, developer Volition previously has stated they have add both a free update and expansion DLC, the latter called the Heist and Hazardous. Volition provided details this month on the Sunshine Springs update, launched March 9th. And I put it up here. You can see it's very, very, very long. So if you want to read it, I leave it linked below. All my sources are linked below. The developer states via official webpage that they are working to undo the harm caused by the game's poor launch, as they admitted back in October. The base game was hated by both professional and independent critics alike, who found the gameplay dated, plenty of bugs and technical flaws, as well as a lack of overall identity. Volition dismissing the fan concerns prior to launch and even mocking them in some cases. Really? I kind of want to see this. Well, we'll ditch the series' wacky, rotist identity in favor of doing something contemporary. Okay, that's something you don't want to say. Look, I know gamers are very hard to please. We are. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. We constantly say we want something new, but at the same time, something familiar. I I can't really blame game developers for being like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like game developers, as someone who's worked in game journalism since he was 16, I did it as a hobby from 16 to 22. When I became 22 where I started doing it professionally when my website I worked for, Noobfeed.com, started to take off. And I started getting invited to places like Comic-Con, PAX, New York Plays, E3. Indie developers were talking to me to come over to their studios. Heck, when Nintendo invites you to something, you know you've made it. So I can understand that developers, like, for me, I can't remove the human element when it comes to game development, because anytime I see a game developed, I always look at the human aspect of it. The developers in the background, the publishers, the marketers, the QA testers, the many studios who come together. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that the game sucked. Like, as much as I like to try and look at the human element, I feel bad for everyone who had to work on Anthem, for example. We all know what happened with that. Jason Schreier did an outstanding article on Anthem of how it mentally destroyed so many people and crippled BioWare in so many ways. But the game sucked. It did. Like, it had so many issues. The underlying factor of flying around and shooting was fun, but the game just had so much repetitive, nonsensical, unengaging content that you just fell apart on the game. Alongside, so many ads. I know I should use ad blocker, but I believe that if you use a website, that you should pay for it in some way. Like, that's my opinion. You don't have to follow it. Do what you do. Alongside the launch of the Heist and Hazardous, the opening of our brand new district, Sunshine Springs, the team has been hard at work bringing you a huge set of quality of life improvements, new features, bug fixes. This includes an overhaul of the combat to make it feel smoother and more badass than ever before, plus new features like selfie mode and emote wheel, allowing you to choose up to 8 emotes for quick deployment. I don't think people are going to care about that, but, good for you for fixing the issues. Some missions have been improved, and we added the options to disable and enable health bars to your leisure. This kind of reminds me of the Shadow of War situation. I'm replaying the Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War series. Remember when Shadow of War came out and it had all those microtransactions that basically funneled you to this in-game single-player store? And the last part of Shadow of War had this huge war campaign where you had to hold off Sauron's forces for, I think it was 8 weeks worth of campaigns. It took like 5 hours for me, or maybe more. I don't even remember, but it took a long ass time. And it was because I saved up all of the in-game currency. I didn't buy anything, but I saved up so much in-game currency that I was able to get some sort of mock packs in order to level up my Uruks. And the thing is that I was one of the rare people who completed the game because of that, but later down the line, they fixed it where they made it less grindy. They removed the in-game shops. That's because the game reached its peak. It kind of fell off after, games fall off after like maybe I would say 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the popularity of the game. Shadow of War is still very popular even to this day. You see a lot of channels still cover the game. It's an absolutely fantastic game, but they took it away. And then I don't think a lot of people even replayed the game just to see what it was. Most of us either quit during the war campaign or just never replayed it. I kept telling myself I wanted to replay it. I'm doing it now, but back then I was like, you know what? I sacrificed so much metal and so much fortitude to get through it the first time. I don't want to have to do that shit again. The game is very long and it's really good, but I just didn't want to go through that all over again. And I don't think a lot of people will do this because, especially the people who bought the game, they're probably like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm saying that there is always going to be an exception, but for the most part, they're not going to do it. This didn't go unnoticed by outlets such as The Gamer, who went on the headline Saints Row developer overhauls everything Axe fans for another chance. Alongside the new Tatilia Sunshine Springs district, the update adds significant changes to the combat based on feedback and how enemies could be damage sponges. As such, enemy health can be dramatically reduced, along with several aim engagement improvements, reducing how often enemies can dodge to near zero. So that just sounds like an accessibility or difficulty thing, and increasing the time players can interrupt enemy reinforcements to call in. While this sounds like the game is being made easier, on other notes do suggest enemies are harder. I don't know if that is that a different way to spell harder. It is. Never mind. Sorry, I never seen that way. Enemies will no longer wait to engage the player one into combat, and after all, okay, so it's just going on to a lot of the things about it. Um, Honestly, it is up to your own opinion whether you want to play this game again to see all the improvements. I think, yeah, if you want to give the developers and showcase what the showcase their work over the post-launch period, for all means, like it is your time after all, and if you already bought the game, I guess you can do it. But again, it's a really, really hard sell to get people to replay a game that had such a bad impression. Like again, Shadow of War, Anthem tried to do that route. Jedi Survivor, I'm certain, is going to try and do that. Redfall is probably going to do that when they finally add like public matchmaking and stuff like that. It's very doubtful that's going to happen because the landscape for gaming has changed so much. Right now, you have so many options that are available to you that it's hard to like ask players to give games like this another chance, especially nowadays where games are so accessible right now. You can literally go to Steam and get almost any game you want. Same, Xbox is pushing that as well. There are so many options to this, and the problem with that is that I guess from a new game developer is that certain other games can gain prominent because people felt these games are crap. We've seen it before where very top content creators will go back to older games and then they would gain a surge in boost of popularity because those content creators decide to go to something old. Personally speaking, if games start to like over monetize and deliver like this, when I'm like 60 or 70, chances are I'm going to dish out the Super Nintendo and just play my old games. Technically, the Xbox 360 is like a retro console now. My Xbox 360 still works. I'll literally bring that open and play War for Cybertron. Freaking amazing game that you can't buy anymore. I'll play the original Halo games, the Final Fantasy games. Like there's so many other games that really have so much heart and soul to them. Like why play the old Saints Row games? I've never played them. I could replay those. The GTA games that I loved so much, like GTA 3 and Vice City. It just, you see, when you start to add the arguments together, it starts to fall apart. While I do believe everyone deserves a second chance, you kind of need an audience in order to gain that second chance. That's why No Man's Sky got it. That's why Star Wars Battlefront 2 got it. That's why Final Fantasy 14 got it. These were huge franchises with, like, yeah, No Man's Sky is nowhere compared to those other two, Final Fantasy and Star Wars, but so many people were playing the game when, it was released in 2016, despite all the problems, that it was able to roll with those fans and gain the traction that it did. It's like with Minecraft. I would say it's called I would call it the Minecraft syndrome, where if people keep making content for the game and then something good happens, a lot of people will look to those content creators, where their mouth will spread, and then suddenly you will have a snowball effect until finally everything comes together. So I would say No Man's Sky is just like a perfect storm of examples that have so much layers to it, but the biggest layer is luck. I know I went a bit long on this video, but I like to bring context to everything I state, like a Greek play. As Kratos would say, it's good to say everything you're about to convey in order to make everything clear to the audience. But I also like to try and argue my point as effectively as possible. I've stated this before in past videos. I don't care whether you agree with me or not. I care whether you can argue your point correctly. So hopefully I did that for you. I earned your sub, or maybe you thought this video sucked and you're gonna dislike it. That's fair too. I'm always looking for ways to improve. Either way, thanks for joining me. Like, sub if you want to do that. It's up to you. And this is me signing out. Goodbye.